Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our GIA Knowledge Sessions. These are a series of talks and seminars about gemology that are fueled by our decades of research. And, at GIA, we're so lucky to study and learn from gems. And, it's our mission to share our discoveries and learnings with the world. So I'm really excited to kick things off today. I'm Kelly Giordano, a member of the content team here at GIA, and I'm joined by Dr. Tao Hsu, Director of Global Professional Development. And she's about to give us an inside look into the world's biggest jade auction. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone attending this is automatically muted. So if you have a question, please submit it using the Q&A feature you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And please feel free to ask questions as we go. There will be a Q&A session at the end where Dr. Hsu will have an opportunity to answer some of your questions. We'll also be sending a recording of this session either later today or early tomorrow. And that message will have a survey. So we're really excited to hear your feedback as well. And with that, I'm going to pass you over to Tao.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I'm so glad that today you're going to join me to journey to Myanmar. I really want to show you this very exclusive Jadeite jade auction. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get going now. So for a while, we put the name as Myanmar Gems Emporium, and we didn't realize that we actually had a typo there. And one day, one of our colleagues, she is from Myanmar, and she pointed out that it's actually called Myanmar Gems Emporium. So that's not a typo, that's the real name of the event. And we have this 7 things to go over today. So first I want to give you some background, both on Jadeite jade as a gem, and then the event itself. Then we will go over the ever-changing appearance or look of jadeite. If you see no 2 diamonds look exactly the same, it's even more true for jadeite. No 2 pieces of jadeite look the same. And at the auction, it's actually the best place for you to look at jadeite, to learn about jadeite. And then I will show you at the auction, what are the lots looking like? There are many different formats. And then we'll go to the bread and butter of this talk, the quality evaluation. I know many of you are super interested in this topic. And then we will go over the bidding process, which is another super interesting topic. You do have a lot of things to pay attention to. And the buyers are, the job of the buyers is not easy. It's actually very exhausting. And then we'll see the significant results of this auction. This auction, I mean, last year in March, GIA Field Gemology team got a really precious opportunity to go to Myanmar and visit this auction. It's very exclusive. It's only open to the insiders usually. So that was a good opportunity, and GIA Education also had a team to join them. And then I will give you a sneak peek at what happened after the auction. We got some firsthand information, images from our trade contacts. What happened after the auction, what the buyers do after that. So let's start with jadeite itself. So in Western countries, when we say jade, we actually mean 2 different types of rocks. One is jadeite, the other one is nephrite. And apparently jadeite jade will be the topic for today. Jadeite jade is the Chinese people's favorite gem. As many of you know, they love jade. And they love both types of jade. And jadeite, the history in China is relatively shorter compared to nephrite jade. They're only about the past 250 to 300 years that the Chinese started to appreciate this gem. And jadeite can occur almost in every color on the spectrum. So green, lavender, these are probably the colors that you are familiar with. but it can also occur in red, brown. This red is not the same red as ruby red. Later you will see what I mean. Or colorless. A lot of these other colors, other color than green, actually are even rarer compared to the green color. Value-wise, green is definitely on the top, and then following that will be the lavender color, and several other colors sort of following this too. And the prices of jadeite jumped several-fold, at least several-fold, for the past decade in China. The demand has been really strong, which pushed the price up quite a lot. And this is also reflected in the rough market. This is the auction I'm going to take you to today to see the value, the price that buyers paid for the rough. Then you will have a better understanding why jadeite pieces are that expensive. And the sourcing has been very mysterious because this is mainly catering a special group, I mean, especially the consumers in mainland China. So it's a pretty closed group of people. So to a lot of outsiders, they don't really have the chance to see what's going on in the rough jadeite market. And let's look at this map here. I have several red circles put on the map. So I want to talk about these several important cities for the jadeite jade trade. And many of you probably already knew that over 90% of the high quality jadeite is produced from Myanmar. It used to be called Burma, and now it's called Myanmar. And the producing area is the northern Myanmar, an area called Pakan in Kachin State. This area, you probably also have seen some videos on YouTube. Let's see how crazy that is when people rush there to try to get the jadeite boulders out. Another city is Naypyidaw, you see to the south of Pakan. That's the new capital of Myanmar. That's where the Jade Auction happens, actually. It's a relatively new city, and there are a lot of high-end hotels there, and every year they host this event, which is a very important event for that city, for the whole country, actually. And a lot of Chinese went there to buy jadeite. Another city is Ruili City. This is a city, a Chinese city, right on the border between Myanmar and China. This is one entrance for the jadeite rough to go into China. Another important entrance is Chinese Guangdong province. And Guangdong province is not just an entrance for rough jadeite, it's also the world capital of jade manufacturing. So a lot of the carvings, the manufacturing of bangles, cabochons, you know, all sorts of things are done there. There are several famous hubs in Guangdong province that are very famous for jadeite and jade in general, actually, manufacturing. So these are the several important locations for jadeite rough trading. So last March, we went to Naypyidaw to witness the Jade Auction there. And about the event, the first emporium, or it's usually called Jade Auction in the trade, because even though the emporium offers actually 3 different types of gems: jade, jadeite jade, and cultured pearls, and color stones. As you all know, Myanmar is a very important color stone source as well. Even though it offers all 3, the jadeite jade is definitely the star there. So in the trade, this event is often called the Jade Auction. It started in 1964, and usually once or twice a year, usually twice, sometimes once, depending on the different situations. In 2012, actually, because of the political instability there, the event paused for a year. So from 1964 to 2019, that's the 56th anniversary of the event. And we went there in March to see the auction. It's a 10-day event. So first 4 days, buyers will look at, check out all the lots. They all get a book, a catalog, and they can look at the lots offered ahead of the event. And then they can target what they like to check out in person, and they can evaluate the quality for the first 4 days. And then starting from the 5th day, they start to bid on the Jadeite lots. And you can still keep checking, and if for that day, then the price will be gradually reviewed from day 5 to day 10. So if your lot hasn't been, the price hasn't been reviewed, you can still keep checking. But start from day 5, you're going to pay close attention to the results, so you don't miss your lot. And we'll talk more later about why this is so important. And this is what the venue looks like. It's a huge place. It's like a convention center type of thing. And they have a main hall, and they have all of these metal roof shelters outdoor. A lot of the Jadeite lots are actually hosted in these shelters. So for the weather there, even last year when we were there, it was March. It was pretty good weather. And the average temperature was about 40 degrees Celsius and super humid. So you can imagine how hard for these buyers to check out the Jadeite lots in this type of weather. It's pretty exhausting work. And usually for the auction, they show about, last year, about 7,000, more than 7,000 Jadeite lots. And the amount varies year by year. So sometimes it could be even more. And according to our trade contact, if you went back 5 years, sometimes the event offers 15,000, 20,000 lots. So the number actually started to drop. So last year it was over 7,000 lots. Okay. And I want to show you the venue, the 2 types of venue here. One is outdoor. So you see some of these Jadeite lots are actually, they're not in a room or even in a shelter, they're just placed outdoor there. The buyers can check them there. And some of them are hosted in this shelter. In comparison, there was also the indoor venue, which are rooms inside the main building. The quality of the jade on average or in general, those pieces that are displayed indoors, I feel it's slightly higher than those displayed outdoors. But this is not true for every piece, because later I'm going to show you some exceptions. Why I want to show you these 2 types of the different venues, because you see the lighting condition there are quite different. If you check out the quality outdoors, the sunlight is pretty strong there. And if you check the quality indoors, it's mainly lit by this artificial lighting. So the buyers need to deal with this, and they have some ways to deal with it, which we will talk about later. Now I want to show you the ever-changing appearance. So I thought, before I went to the jade auction, I like jade, and many Chinese people love it as well. And we see, usually on the market, we see the finished product, and you don't think too much about what the jade rough looks like, how much difference you see in the rough. And when I was at the auction, I took so many pictures because every piece looks different. I want to share as many as possible with you today, but this is only a tiny fraction of all the lots that are displayed at the auction. So let's start with Jade Eye rough anatomy. Usually you can just divide it into two parts, and it's like a watermelon or any types of melons. It has skin, and then it has the flesh inside it. And sometimes people also, divide it into 3 layers. The skin, look at the right image, the skin, and then there's a layer in between the skin and the real flesh, the real jadeite here. Some people call this layer the foggy layer. It's also sometimes it's more obvious. In this piece, apparently you can see that layer, but for some other pieces, you don't see that layer at all. So as we know that the skin is caused by weathering of the jade boulder, and then some of the materials can penetrate into the jade boulder. That's how this layer forms, and then the rest of that is the material that was not altered by weathering. So why the jade lots you see here are all jade boulders, and people also call it jade boulders because these are all from the secondary deposit. And Myanmar has both primary and secondary deposits of jadeite, but the goods that we can see on the market is predominantly from the secondary deposits. That's why you see the shape of all these lots are boulders, just sliced into different shapes of slices. So let's go back to the jade rough anatomy and talk about the skin. So just for the skin, you probably have to spend years to learn about it because the color and the texture all vary depending on the location where the jade boulder is from. So the really experienced Chinese buyers, they know, again, through the accumulation of decades of experience, what type of skin is from roughly where, which deposit. And some deposits tend to produce higher quality goods and some others don't. So by looking at the skin, they can get some clue. And if you want to study this, there are books after books talking about this based on experience. I don't know about like how much science, solid science are behind this, but you can spend quite a lot of time to learn that. Let's see, these 2 pictures, the color of the skin is a little bit different. The right side one is yellowish. The left side one has some green on it, but a whitish. And the texture also looks different. The left one is coarser. The right one is quite a fine texture skin. And the trade people usually call the right side image that skin type sandy looking. And they have all these different terms used in the trade to describe the skin. Again, these 2 pictures, the left side one is black color and sandy looking, I would say. And the right side one, even more interesting. This is, in Chinese, we call Jadeite jade, fei cui. So these are 2 different characters. Fei means the red color. Cui means the green color. So this color is fei. Okay? And you see why I say this color is even rarer than green, because at the auction, you actually see different shades of green the most. Of course, the top quality green, the imperial green, it's very rare. You don't see that color that much, but you do see green, lighter green, bluish green, different shades of green pretty often. But compared to green, some of these other colors, like this reddish color, Some people will argue like it's brown, okay? So it's not really ruby red. It's a little bit brownish red. This material often occurs as the skin of a jadeite boulder due to oxidation. You see how thin this layer is. So if you want to get enough material, a piece of material thick enough for you to be able to make a cabochon, to make a pendant, that's even rarer. That's why I say some of these other colors, especially the top quality ones, it's even harder to get, to bump into. And you see the right side image, this layer of skin, it's not sandy looking like this. It's almost like a waxy looking. So again, these terms are not scientific terms. These are used by the trade people to just describe what the skin looks like. And two more examples here. The left one, see again, pretty coarse texture there, whitish color. And the right side image, especially this part, it's pretty fine texture, whitish color, and it looks to me like sugary feeling. So when you go to the jade auction, not just pay attention to the jade inside the boulder, also pay attention to the skin, because the skin can tell you something about the inside of the jade boulder. Now we move to the internal pattern. Okay, so after you slice the boulder open, I want to show you this picture because this is a very typical look. To me, it's like a painting, a crazy painting. And you see all these veins going crazily. They're flowy. Because jade is actually a metamorphic rock. And there was a lot of fluid activity during its formation. The fluid actually brought in the color-causing elements. So it was quite important. That's why it's common for you to see this type of crazy patterns on the surface of a lot of these boulders, not on the skin surface, but when you slice them open, you do see this pattern quite a lot. So I want to use this picture. This is one of the best examples to show you, like at least you will see this a lot. And then I want to show you some other examples. The left piece here, pretty evenly distributed color. But what's interesting is here you see a crack going in, and then this piece was sort of separated from the rest of the flesh and is completely surrounded by the, this material caused by weathering. Apparently there used to be a fracture coming down from the surface to the inside of this piece of jade. And there are also some other crazy patterns like this. This is not flowy, but you see all these different mineral grains here of different colors. And more example here, another red. I want to show the red because it's so rare to see them. At the auction, these are probably the only ones that I saw, in a couple pieces, a couple lots that have good, decent amount of reddish layer on the surface of the boulder. So you see inside is from the surface to the core of this piece. You sort of see the color gradation here from red to this, again, this foggy red layer to the inside of the jade. It was used to be green. It's not a top green, it's just a slightly greenish boulder. And then the right side one, it's also pretty common for you to see a color combination on the same piece of jade rough. So for this one, you have the lavender color together with this whitish color, and maybe a slight tint of green, but apparently the quality of this rough, people all focus on this side. So you see why there are two bangle marks there because people want to make bangles out of this area. So nobody really paid much attention to this area. If you buy this boulder, you're probably going to use this part more than that. Okay, and there are other interesting patterns as well. For example, this one, and the color, the green color is pretty good. And then you have this whitish dots. I mean, these are mineral inclusions, apparently. We didn't test what it is, but you can guess it's probably some commonly seen mineral associated together with jadeite. Again, jadeite, nephrite, jade, both are rocks. They are not single crystal minerals. So they're way more complicated than single crystal gems like ruby, sapphire, because it's a rock, although it's predominantly composed of jadeite as the mineral, but it has other minerals inside it as well. But something like this for a cover, a creative cover and a creative jewelry designer, you can make something really unique. And this one, the right side piece, you see how crazy that is. The color, first, it's a combination of three. You have black, and usually the black is super deep green. So later I will show you another photo to have you see it. And then this really light green color, or some people call whitish color, and this lavender color, not as veins, but in this case as patches. This rough like this gonna be super challenging for the buyers. How are you gonna use it efficiently? That's gonna be a big question for the buyers. Now, let's see the different formats of lots here. And I see the majority are one big folder being sliced open into different pieces. So some are giant boulder and they slice into pieces and you display them there. It occupies quite a large area for that lot. It's one lot. So if you want to buy, you cannot just buy one piece. You have to buy one lot. Although you can share the pieces with your partners, business partners, but the sellers only sell this whole thing. That's probably easily about 100 square foot there. And some lots are smaller, but it's still one piece of boulder being sliced open. And you also see those pieces that are hosted in this type of metal cages. And these are also pieces sliced from one boulder. Again, while we are seeing this photo, I want to mention the Jadeite rough buying and selling. This is a very interesting game, actually, between the Chinese buyers, again, predominantly these are bought by the Chinese buyers. And then the sellers are the Myanmar sellers. So the game between the two groups is very interesting because the sellers want to show the best of that jadeite piece. So they know where to give you a show points, where to open a window for you to see the color. And the buyers don't want to be disguised by the windows, the show points, and they try to look through those to see the real quality of the piece. So the game between these two groups is actually the most fascinating part of this Jade auction. So you see this type of lots. When people go to lunch, when the day is over, they will lock the cage, and then when it start again, people come back and check the quality. But this type of thing are usually of low to medium quality. And there are also lots composed of just one single piece, one single boulder with some show points, some windows. Okay. So these are more important. A lot of buyers, especially the high-end buyers, they will focus on this type of lots. And there are also smaller lots. I mean, these are more familiar to the end consumers. I mean, they cut the boulder to pieces quite small, and now it's almost to a pendant size. And you can see what you want to make out of that pretty much easier than those boulders. But smaller don't mean cheaper. And you can see the reserve price of this lot. These are just maybe a dozen pieces, pretty small, 52 grams. And the reserve price is 1 million euro. And they use euros there, not dollar, not US dollar, not RMB, but euros. Okay, so here we have some interesting lots as well. These are finished products. The left side are just plastic bins full of Jadeite beads, and you have to buy the whole bin, of course. The right side, I want to point out, there are beds being sold at the auction. The frames are made out of wood, and they use Jadeite to mount the panels. So I want to give you a question here. I want you to guess, what's the price? What's the average price, unit price for this type of beds? I mean, you can see that there are some are bigger, some are smaller, but what's the average? I'm gonna have Kelly and Amber to handle the poll. I gave you 3 options, and you can send your best answers in. I see the result. That's great. Most of you got that right. How to evaluate the quality? This is apparently the most important for the buyers. There are some principles I want to touch here. We're going to be able to barely scratch the surface of quality evaluation because this is such a huge topic, but I just want to give you a couple tips here. So first, you want to see more. And the general principle here is the more you see, the more you pay. Is you probably know about gambling stones. Those stones don't even have any show points. It's just a whole boulder with skin covered everything. That's the highest risk. But at the auction, most of the lots, I would say, nearly all of the lots, you got to have something to see. The sellers already scraped off some skins for you to check out the color, the transparency, and the texture of the goods. So first important thing is color. As all color stones, color is the king. And then for Jadeite, you cannot just force the 4C of the color stone on Jadeite because it's again, it's a rock, it's more complicated. So you look at the transparency, you look at the texture, and these two, the Chinese buyers often combine them together to call it the water of the jade. So they say the water is high, the water is low. It's like the skin, people's skin, like whether your skin is plump, whether it looks dry, you know. So it's like the bubblegum feeling. If I say the water is high, it's a bubblegum feeling for some other gems. So you want to see more. Let's say, look at this left image here. It's a giant boulder, and it has some show points there. Okay, it all looks green. So are you gonna believe that this whole boulder is of that color? Okay, and the right side image here, it has a big surface open here. And this color is pretty consistent with the window here on the side of that rough. So this might be more promising. I mean, again, there's no guarantee. Okay, I want to show you this illustration why I say sometimes you just cannot trust your eyes. For example, this is the boulder. As what I mentioned before, the green color, and some of them, the color causing element was brought in by fluid activity. And you have this type of a vein, green veins. And the seller are very experienced. They know where to scrape off the skin. They show you this area, it's green. But when you look at the boulder, in fact, most of the boulder there is no green color. So if they cut it here, you see this green area, this green area. But you don't know how deep that green penetrates into the boulder. So sometimes your eyes gonna cheat on you. This is where you need a lot of experience. So it's not an easy task. Many buyers go there every year for decades to get more experience. So I want to use a piece of cake as an analogy for a well accepted principle in the trade. Green lines are safer than green surfaces. What does that mean? For example, you have a piece of cake. You care about the green layer. You don't care about the vanilla, the white layers, okay? So if the seller cut that right through the middle of that green layer and show you the two surfaces, you look at this, oh, it's great, two big green surfaces, but you don't know how deep that layer goes down to the boulder. So if they cut it in half, at least you sacrifice half of the thickness. You might not be able to even make a cabochon out of that. So they can cut it in different ways. If they cut it this way, people by this side are gonna get a lot of green, but people by that side won't get much green at all. And they can also, barely cut it this way, and you see the green color on the surface, but you don't get much at all. So for people that with not much experience, if you see a line, it's more promising than a green surface. This is what it means. Again, people with more experience, it's a different story, okay? They have their own ways to tell the penetration, the depth of that green color. So remember that piece of lake, and this is a real piece of jade. There, see that green vein on the surface. And you even see some green color on the side here, which is a good sign. It's highly possible that the green color penetrate down to the bottom of this piece. But you are not quite sure about this area, how thick the layer gonna be down here. You're not quite sure. Okay, and people are well equipped with tools. When you go to a jade auction, you cannot just go with bare hands. This couple, I feel it's very interesting. See the spray bottle they have. So water is very helpful. I'm going to show you pictures. And the flashlight is the key tool. It's a must-have at the auction. And I will talk more about the flashlight. So what does water and oil do here? You pour water on the surface of the boulder. It helps you to see the color better. It works similar as you polish the piece, then you see the color way better. You're gonna see a different look, basically. So buyers all have water bottles with them, and the staff working at the auction also help to do that. But the weather there, again, especially the outdoor venue, it's really hot. So the water dry pretty quick. So sometimes people say oil is better, but it's hard to clean. And flashlight, why it's so important. You see this, the same piece without the flashlight, with a flashlight. And because the piece is usually very thick and you don't see the real color, because when you go back, you have to slice the piece to thinner sections. The color gonna look very different, okay? So color is caused by absorption. So the thicker your material is, the more absorption you have. But when you go back and slice it open, it's gonna be slightly different. So flashlight can help you. And the flashlight the buyers use have two modes. One is of stronger power, one is a lower power, which allow them to adjust when they go from indoor to outdoor. You need to change your lighting mode to get a better estimation of the color. And it has more function. Look at the color first, and then look at the halo, the size of the halo, okay? So if it's something not transparent, let's say it's something opaque, for example, your skin, like if you put a flashlight on your skin, you won't see any halo. But if the material is transparent with some transparency, again, for jade, it's not transparent completely, but it's usually translucent, and you want to get higher transparency. So you see, by looking at the size of the halo, you get an idea of the transparency of the piece. And then also it helps you to see the depth of the color as well. So flashlight is super important for Jade Eye buyers. And these are two good examples. The left one, you see it's black color, but when this person shed the light from the flashlight from behind this piece, you see the true body color is actually green. So when you slice this to super thin layers, you might get some green color. And the right side image, you see the show points here. If you don't have a flashlight, it's very hard to even see what's the color of those show points. It blends in with the black skin. And to the left of that flashlight, you see this bluish green color glow out of that rough piece. So this helps you to see the transparency and the color penetration here. And this is my favorite piece with a very high reserve price. So you see the halo size here. How big is that halo? And the transparency of the material is superb, this one. Of course, the price is over it's nearly 5 million euro is the reserve price. And this piece also has the second most valuable color, lavender. And it's a better lavender color, it's more pinkish. So lavender has the more purplish and pinkish. This one has everything in it. And another important tool is a bangle template. So almost every buyer has a stack of bangle templates of different sizes. And why they have to have this? Because among all jewelry types, bangle, Jade Eye bangle commands the highest price. So the same material, if it's made to a bangle, it costs a lot higher than other pieces. So people always want to check out where I can get a bangle out of that piece of rough. For example, this one, you see the rough, it has both the lavender and the green color there, and people put a bangle mark right at that location. It has both colors, and that's the piece in their mind, like I want to make something like this. This color combination is very desired in China. So that's why people want that color combination. The beading process, I'm going to quickly go over this, also very interesting. So after checking the quality, estimating the value they can get out of that rough, after all these hard work, they're going to have to bead on the lots. And look at how many beading boxes, there are hundreds of them. And look at the stack of beading forms that this guy is holding. So buyers cannot just bead on one lot. Your chance is going to be very slim. So usually they bid on a lot of lots. They have to put the forms into the right beading box. So be super careful because you don't want to feel any information wrong on that form, because one more zero or one less zero going to cost you a lot. If it's one less, you're going to lose that beading. You won't have anything to sell. If it's one more zero, okay, you're going to pay 10% deposit. So don't risk that either. And if you give up a lot without without informing the seller, the organizer properly, you're going to be banned from the auction. If you're a local, if you're from Myanmar, you're going to be banned for life, actually. If you're a foreigner, you're going to be banned for 10 years. So it's highly risky. Pay attention to your writing. Pay attention to the number on the beading box. Don't make any mistakes. And here are some results from this auction. And there's no sequence, it's not from high to low, just a couple of examples. I want to show you how much the price jumped from the reserve price to the final sold price here. Some jumped 10 times. And the total sales for that auction is nearly $500 million. So that's why this trade is super important to Myanmar. If twice a year of the auction happens twice a year. This is going to be over $1 billion plus everything. This is the official channel for Jade Rough to go out of the country. There are definitely other unofficial channels for Jadeite rough to go out of the country. So for Myanmar, this is a multi-billion-dollar trade, super important for the country. And I want to show you this, the Jade King of this auction. Okay, see the reserve price, 80,000 euro. And the final price, over 10 million euro. It jumped 132 times. And what's so special, you see this piece is not indoor, it's outdoor. And our contact sent us some photos after the auction. We didn't stay there for the whole 10 days. So see the penetration of the light. This is shed the flashlight from behind that piece. This is how thick that piece is. And I want to show you this short video. Just see the mirror-like filling of this piece. One boulder sliced into 2 pieces. Okay, one more time, especially the beginning, see how transparent that piece is. It has some cracks, but the transparency, texture, and even some green, good in color. Okay, so after the auction, the buyers go back, start to plan even more. They're gonna remove the skin and start to see what they can really make out of that piece of rough. And if they are lucky, they got something like this, they can make a bangle out of that. Again, you gotta buy one thing, either the color or the transparency and the texture. This piece apparently not win by the color, but win by the water. The water is very high. So if you want to learn more about Jadeite, take our newly launched Color Stone course. We have pretty good content there for both nephrite and Jadeite jade. And we have plenty of articles for you to look at if you are interested in more aspects about this trade. And I'll leave some time for you to ask questions.
Okay, thank you, Tao. That was incredible. We got a lot of questions, so I'm gonna.
The price of the bet.
Yes.
The price of the bet, 10,000.
So we'll say for
10,000.
Okay, so that was about 70% of you got it right. So it looked like that was the majority of the responses. Good job. Okay, so we got a lot of questions in here. So I'm going to do my best to move through as many as we can in the time that we have. So we have some that are really focused on the auction and then some that are more just about jade in general. So I'm going to start with the auction info. So how big are the lots in kilograms?
It varies quite a lot. So you see some lots, it's just one little pieces. remember that little green one with the white dots? That one little piece can be a lot. And some are even coarse. They drill out of the rough, like after they make bangles, they drill the coarse out and put all the coarse in a basket as a lot. And some will be the size of my bedroom. It's like a huge boulder being sliced into pieces, or just a huge boulder. So it really varies from a few grams to, I would say, thousands of kilos of these.
Okay. How are any boulders sold without being cut first, so that the buyer can only see the skin of the boulder and not the actual interior?
At the auction, very rarely. So that case is a gamble stone. And you will find gamble stone, I mean, in different markets, when you get close to the source, or sometimes at the border between China and Myanmar. But at the auction, I did pay attention to this. Actually, a lot of the lots, they do have some type of show points there. So it's not a complete gamble.
Okay. Is the size of the halo by flashlight reliable? And does it matter what flashlight is best, like incandescent, LED, fluorescent? So is there any other, what about the flashlight makes a difference in evaluating a piece of jade?
I would say, and definitely, it depends on the flashlight, yes. But if you are using the same flashlight, you're gonna see different halo size. You have to sort of calibrate with your own flashlight. So you will see different halo size, yes. But what the buyers use actually is a pretty standardized flashlight, very specifically designed for the jade rough trade, I would say. So it has 2 modes, and they also sell that on site. If you, unfortunately, you forget yours, you can buy one right there. It has 2 modes, and it has a ruler on the side as well. You can measure the thickness of the color, the layer that you are targeting.
That's interesting. So it's very specialized. Does it matter what oil you use if you're using oil, and does the oil actually impact the integrity of the jadeite at all?
I would say no, because especially for jadeite of medium to high quality, you know, it's pretty hard to really have the oil penetrate the space between the mineral grains. It's pretty hard. You're gonna have some pressure. So if you just put the oil on the surface, it's okay to, you know, after your evaluation, you can remove it, and it won't, because later you're gonna process the rough as well. You're gonna polish the surface as well. So it doesn't have much impact.
Okay. Regarding the red jade, it looked like all the lots that were shown have high luster and no rough skin, like we saw in some of the other lots. So is that because red jade lots are usually polished before the auction?
That's a great observation, I have to say. I do feel that for the ones that with the red skin, a lot of them are polished. I think it's just better to show the color, show the color better, to show the transparency better. Some of these are polished, even not just the red, the green, the other colors can also be polished. And our trade contact told us this is totally up to the seller. So some seller feel polishing gonna help the look of that rough. And sometimes they do remove some of the imperfections by polishing that piece. So that happens as well.
Okay. So you were talking about the way that oil might impact jade. Is jade porous enough to be artificially dyed?
Well, yes, because we all know that there are ABC jade. A jade is the natural, B jade is the impregnated but not dyed, C is dyed. Okay, so apparently you can, but before you do this, you have to have some other processes done. So usually you have to give the jade acid bath to clean it in acid, really strong acid. And this acid will help you to loosen the structure of the jade. So to open it up and give you the space to let the dye in. If you don't do that, actually pretty hard. So that cleaning process is super critical before you put any dye in.
Okay. How do we know the difference between just a big rock and a jade boulder? Like, how can we determine what's jade and what's not?
That's hard. I would say that's pretty hard, because first you have to have the environment to form the jade. And I mean, there are a lot of studies done on where our jade occur on the planet. You're going to see you do have to have the proper geological environment to form that. So first you need to make sure you are in the targeting area, and then it's possible. Okay, but if you are not even at an area that has that environment, pretty much it's not a jade boulder.
That's good to know. Does it matter what kind of skin is on the boulder, does that give us any, you know, clues as to what the quality of the jade is inside?
Yeah, this is, I can say it's sort of like a trade secret for for the especially for the buyers. I mean, they all study. They can read books. I mean, again, this is not, there's no book that can teach you 100%. This skin definitely means this type of quality. So they all sort of have to learn on its own and figure out, okay, maybe the yellowish sandy skin, you know, tell me something. The whitish skin tell me something else. Apparently the skin color texture caused by the environment first, and also caused by what's below that layer. So it's related to both sides. It's a very complicated, very complicated subject.
So it may give you some clues, but it won't tell you exactly.
No 100% guarantee for any, even for experienced buyers.
Okay. I got a lot of questions about the Mosset Sit slide. So people just wanted you to talk a little bit more about it, about, you know, what it is, maybe even, you know, if you can, I'm not to complicate it, but go back to the slide and talk about it a little more.
Yeah, I remember that one. That one piece, you know, with the different dots of different colors, some black, some green. First, you know, I'm not sure whether it's Mosset, that material, because Mosset is not the same thing as Jadeite. It's composed of different minerals, multiple types of minerals. It's a beautiful material, and it's also produced from Myanmar. And actually, many people desire that material, but these days it's so hard to find on the market. I don't know whether it's just a source exhausted or what exactly the reason behind this. That piece I showed there, the green color, you know, again, we didn't test any of this, but I suppose the green color is jadeite, and then the black color, maybe chromite, a different mineral. That's just my guess. But to be called jadeite, well, the majority of the mineral has to be the mineral jadeite. It cannot have too much of other minerals.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What is, and I know, you know, without assigning a value to either, what tends to be more valuable in the market? Is it a jade with a really uniform green color or a variety of shades of green?
I would say for jewelry pieces, even color is more desired. So for a pendant, for a cabochon, for, you know, no matter you polish into any shapes, for smaller pieces, even color is better. But for carving, that's a completely different story. So carving, usually the scale is bigger, and you do, you know, sometimes prefer some color variation, and the really skillful master carvers, they actually want to use the different colors for different themes. So that would be, you know, a plus for them. But for jewelry making people, that might not be the case.
Okay. We're coming up to the end. We're going a little over, but I'm just going to ask one more question. Mm-hmm. Why are jade bangles so popular?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's use this question to wrap this up. So jade bangle, first, it requires a large piece of rough, perfect quality. You cannot have cracks in that rough. The color has to be good. The transparency, texture, all of this have to be good. For a high quality bangle, I mean, you can have low quality bangle, but no matter it's low, medium, high quality, the bangle requires the volume of that rough to be decent. It's hard sometimes. You see a lot of rough have cracks in it. So hard to get just that one piece of solid, good quality jade out. That's why it asks for the highest price.
Great. Okay, so with that, we're going to wrap up. If you have any other questions for us, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Like I said, we'll be sending a recording of this to everyone within the next 24 hours. And thanks everyone for coming, and please join us again next week, where we'll be joined by Robert Weldon, Aaron Pahlke, and Wim Vertriest, and they're going to give us an inside look between some of the photos they've taken on their expeditions that no one's ever seen before. So it'll be a very exciting presentation, and we'll see you again next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.